The vast dome of the Galactic Federation's diplomatic chamber shimmered with ambient starlight, suspended in orbit over a dead moon in Sector 11. It was a monument to millennia of treaties, accords, and tense standoffs. At its center stood a circular platform, where today's most controversial debate was about to unfold. Seated or hovering along its tires were the envoys of 57 alien species, some ancient and proud, others newly uplifted but no less proud of their place in the galactic order. And all of them were staring at one figure. Earth's representative, Ambassador Lin Chen. She stood at the central podium in a navy blue diplomatic suit, tailored and elegant, understated yet firm. To some, her presence was remarkable, not because of any flamboyance or alien grandeur, but because of her stillness. There was a calm about her that suggested not arrogance, but unshakable preparation. The eyes of dozens of worlds were upon her, and she welcomed their gaze without flinching. "Members of the Federation," she began, her voice calm and clear, her accent faintly Midwestern. "The Human Confederation appreciates the concerns raised by the Drax Empire regarding our recent colonization efforts in the Orion Arm. However, we must respectfully decline your request to halt our development of these worlds." According to Federation Charter 37B, the planets in question were designated unclaimed, and we have since established thriving civilian colonies with fully functioning ecosystems. She paused, letting her words settle over the crowd. The statement was fair, legal, reasonable, but the reaction was anything but. From the opposite end of the chamber, a towering figure rose, War Commander Kick of the Drax Empire. At over 3 meters tall, his bio-armored body glistened with shifting iridescence, each muscle twitching beneath his scaled skin. The gill-like slits on the sides of his neck pulsed open with the hiss of exhaled heat, a sign of rising aggression in his kind. The Universal Translator did its best to neutralize the deep, rumbling contempt in his voice. "The Drax do not make requests, human," Key thundered. "We issue warnings." His eyes narrowed, his mandibles clacking together in a sound that reverberated across the chamber. "Your kind has existed in galactic society for 3 standard cycles. A blink. You expand like a contagion, reckless and insatiable. Our empire stood for 10,000 cycles before your ancestors learned to wield fire." Some of the Federation delegates shifted uncomfortably, watching to see how the humans would react. Everyone knew that Drax proud, territorial, and quick to violence. A challenge like this wasn't uncommon from them, but this was different. This was directed at the newest members of the Federation, a species few truly understood. Most of them had assumed humanity would back down, politely, predictably, but Ambassador Chen smiled gently, that same calm resolve shining in her eyes. "We acknowledge the Drax Empire's long-standing contributions to galactic order," she said, her hands clasped at her waist, voice steady. "Earth wishes only peaceful coexistence and mutual prosperity. Perhaps we might establish a joint colonial commission to fairly address concerns of resource usage and expansion." It was a textbook diplomatic maneuver de-escalation with a built-in solution. But to War Commander Kick, it sounded like evasion. "Weakness," the Drax hissed in contempt. "You send your females to negotiate while your warriors hide? Is this how your species claims to have evolved on a Class 12 death world? Perhaps your classification was exaggerated. The insult was calculated. A direct attack on humanity's pride, culture, and biological resilience. Other species might have erupted in anger. Some might have left in shame." Chen didn't blink. Behind her, Admiral Rowan Jackson, stoic, gray-templed, and still as a statue stood silently. He was the head of Earth's military delegation, dressed not in armor or medals, but a simple uniform with no visible insignia. He'd been instructed to observe, not to engage. And so he stood, hands at his side, the slight tightening of his jaw the only indication that he had heard the Drak's words. To anyone watching closely, something else shifted, barely noticeable. His stance, his balance, the way his weight settled. It was nothing dramatic, but suddenly every military observer in the room seemed to register his presence. A Tauran diplomat, whose species prided itself on strict neutrality, attempted to intercede. Perhaps we should review the territorial claims under Section 87 of the human female avoids the challenge, Kik roared over him, his winged appendages unfolding halfway in what all species recognized as a threat. This confirms our intelligence. You spread because you face no predators. Your evolution is unchecked. You are untested. The implications were deadly clear, but Ambassador Chen remained poised. I believe the Federation bylaws encourage peaceful resolution of territorial disputes, she said. Earth remains committed to that principle. Kik pointed a sharpened, clawed digit at her. 3 cycles ago, you were trapped on your little blue planet. Now you claim 17 worlds. Your technological growth exceeds all Federation models. The Draks recognize a threat when it arises. For the first time, Chen's expression changed. Slightly. The corners of her mouth lost their upward turn. The room grew quieter. Earth has no hostile intentions, she said evenly. Our advancement reflects our adaptability, not aggression. Then prove it, Kik growled. Withdraw from the Orion colonies. Immediately. Chen didn't flinch. That's not a reasonable request. These colonies are inhabited. Lives have been established. Ecosystems stabilized. We cannot abandon them. He hissed, his body temperature visibly rising, causing the chamber's climate regulators to compensate. His next words shattered the tension like glass. Then the Drax Empire formally challenges Earth's right to exist in those sectors. By ancient Federation law, we invoke the right of superior claim. The chamber fell into stunned silence. That law, older than most living species, allowed for a controlled, limited military engagement between 2 factions to settle disputed territory. A war, essentially, but under the watchful eye of Federation observers and strict battle protocols. It hadn't been invoked in over 700 standard cycles. Most species glanced nervously at the human delegation. They expected Earth to decline, politely, predictably. Instead, Admiral Jackson leaned forward and whispered something to Ambassador Chen. Her eyes closed briefly, then she nodded once. The Human Confederation acknowledges your challenge, she said. Murmurs rippled across the chamber. As the challenged party, we select the Proxima Centauri neutral zone as the designated battle location. All Federation combat protocols will be observed. War Commander Kik tilted his head, his eyes narrowing in smug satisfaction. The Draks accept. In 7 rotations, we will show this Federation your proper place in the cosmic order. The Federation moderator hurriedly began to pull ancient battle protocols from the archives. The rest of the chamber sat in a state of semi-shock. The humans had just accepted a challenge from the galaxy's apex predators. A challenge they were expected to lose. Admiral Jackson received a quiet update through his neural interface. He touched Ambassador Chen's shoulder and whispered a single sentence. Her nod was brief, but those familiar with human micro-expressions noticed something change in her eyes. She turned back to the chamber for one final declaration. One final matter, she said calmly. Given the formal nature of this challenge, the Human Confederation wishes to clarify that all previous diplomatic courtesies will be suspended during this engagement. She paused. Earth will be operating under Directive 17. The phrase meant nothing to most in the chamber. It sounded like a procedural footnote. Irrelevant. But behind Ambassador Chen, Admiral Jackson straightened his cuffs. Keek scoffed. Hide behind your cryptic protocols if you wish. The outcome is predetermined. Chen held his gaze. The Dracs have never lost a formal challenge, she said. He nodded proudly. Neither have humans, she replied. The delegation turned and exited the chamber in silence. But as they walked, an unexpected thing happened. Species from across the Federation subtly moved aside, creating a wider path than custom required. And so it began. The galaxy had always known humanity as polite, cooperative, and restrained. But something in the way they walked out said this. That had been a choice. And soon, the galaxy would learn what happens when that choice no longer applied. For a long time, no one in the Galactic Federation took the right of superior claims seriously. It was a relic, one of those archaic rules buried in the Federation's founding documents. Originally created as a compromise between species too proud to surrender, but too wary of total war. In its prime, it had been used to avoid interstellar bloodshed by allowing controlled, formalized military conflict to settle disputes over territory. But it hadn't been invoked in 7 centuries. Not until War Commander Kick slammed it down like a gauntlet. When he stood in the Federation chamber and declared a formal challenge against Earth's right to exist in the Orion colonies, the room had gone still. His words echoed like a blast wave. The Drax Empire formally challenges Earth's claim to the Orion sector under Federation law. We invoke the right of superior claim, one battlefleet against another. The victor holds the territory. You could almost hear the air being sucked out of the chamber. The Federation delegates didn't move, didn't speak. Their minds tried to catch up with what had just happened. The Drax apex predators of the Orion Spur, the conquerors of 24 civilizations, had issued an official declaration of war against Earth, a species that had joined the galactic stage barely 3 cycles ago. Most of the Federation expected humanity to crumble under pressure. Their ships, while competent, were basic. Their weapons lacked elegance. Their military protocols were efficient but not innovative. Or so everyone thought. So when Ambassador Chen responded with calm precision, saying, "The Human Confederation acknowledges your challenge," the delegates didn't just look surprised. They looked worried. Admiral Jackson stepped up beside her. As the challenged party, Chen continued, "Earth designates the Proxima Centauri neutral zone as the engagement location. Standard Federation battle protocols will apply." War Commander Kick bared his teeth in what his species considered a victorious grin. "We accept. In 7 rotations, we will demonstrate to the galaxy why some species should remain in their proper place." The declaration was transmitted instantly across galactic communications. News of the impending battle spread like solar flare radiation. Interstellar news networks flooded with commentary. Military analysts projected swift defeat for Earth, and betting pools in over 17 sectors overwhelmingly favored the Drax. The odds were so lopsided, many stations stopped accepting wagers. No one thought Earth could win, but Earth wasn't worried, because Earth knew something no one else did. The calm before the awakening in the days that followed. The Proxima Centauri neutral zone became a circus of galactic interest. Observation ships from every major species arrived and locked into orbit at the mandated safety perimeter. Scientists, diplomats, and military tacticians scrambled for front-row seats to what many were calling the final hours of human arrogance. The human fleet, only 12 ships in total, arrived in silence. No fanfare, no dramatic entrance. Just a collection of cruisers, destroyers, and utility vessels in a standard defensive formation. To the casual observer, it was uninspiring. To the expert, it was almost primitive. Admiral Jackson stood at the center of the Tenacity, the lead command vessel. With his hands folded behind his back, he quietly reviewed the formation on the main tactical display. He wasn't surrounded by extravagant monitors or elaborate command chairs. The bridge of the Tenacity was clean, functional, professional, efficient. But to most of the galaxy, it looked exactly as they expected. Outdated. He didn't mind. Commander Sofia Rodriguez stepped up beside him, neural interface glowing softly beneath her temple. "All ships report Directive 17 authentication complete, sir. Awaiting final authorization." Jackson nodded. Status of civilian observers. Rodriguez checked her feed. 17 diplomatic vessels from Federation oversight, all within safety limits. Monitoring beacons active. Excellent, Jackson execs. Still not taking his eyes off the screen. Outside, nothing about the human fleet screamed power. There were no massive capital ships or glimmering displays of energy. But every officer aboard knew that appearances were part of the plan. Directive 17 had been authorized, and that changed everything. Directive 17, a quiet transformation years ago. Earth made a decision, a critical one. After first contact, when the reality of an expansive, ancient galactic civilization became known, humanity didn't rush to show off their weapons. They didn't broadcast their secrets or challenge the status quo. They learned. They observed. They acted polite. And while the galaxy studied Earth, Earth studied the galaxy. Behind the scenes, they prepared building technologies beyond what they ever disclosed, enhancing systems under strict classification, and testing systems in controlled environments far from foreign sensors. Directive 17 was the contingency plan, the moment when humanity stopped holding back. Admiral Jackson gave the order quietly. Initiate Lazarus Protocol. Authorization Jackson 7 Delta. The transformation was almost immediate. What had appeared to be standard hull plating on the human ship suddenly shifted, sections retracting, reshaping, revealing compartments no one had ever seen before. Supposed communications towers split open to reveal high-powered energy emitters. External struts and structural braces rotated and extended, forming lattices of magnetic shielding grids and deep space sensor suites. Then came the propulsion systems. To the Federation, Earth's ships used fusion drives, functional but primitive. But now, the ships reconfigured, revealing drives based on gravitational field manipulation. To the naked eye, they shimmered, surrounded by light distortions and field interference never before observed in Earth's known technology. On one Federation observation deck, a tan security chief muttered in disbelief. They were hiding all this. This is not just high-end tech. This is next-generation warfare. Captain Maya Okafor, a human liaison on board the observation vessel, smiled politely. Earth has always respected Federation protocol. We're permitted to retain technological sovereignty over systems not derived from Federation knowledge. Under Section 42.7. Discretion, the Arcturian diplomat whispered. They never lied. They just never said. Exactly. The challenge arrives at the edge of the Proximate Centauri neutral zone. The Drax fleet dropped into position. 37 warships, each over a kilometer long, bristling with weapons, glowing with power signatures. Every ship had seen combat in multiple campaigns. The Drax didn't bring fresh recruits. They brought champions. Commander Rodriguez read off the scans. Heavy cruisers, triple escort layers. Weapon signatures indicate phase plasma, void lances, and gravitational disruptors. Standard Drax Alpha Wedge formation. Aggressively confident, Jackson raised one eyebrow. They haven't learned. On the Federation observation decks, the smugness returned. The visual contrast between fleets was staggering. The Drax moved with synchronized precision, each vessel flexing with predatory intent. In comparison, the human fleet remained stationary, almost humble. And then the Drax commander opened the channel. War Commander Kick's voice, deep and booming, filled every ship and observation feed. Attention human vessels. The Drax offer one final opportunity to withdraw. Do so now, and we will allow your species to retain your homeworld and 3 colonies. Surrender, and we will let you survive. Admiral Jackson pressed a button, activating his response mic. This is Admiral Rowan Jackson of the Human Confederation. We acknowledge your message. He paused. Not too long, just long enough. Request denied. A beat of silence followed. Then Kick responded. Then prepare to be erased. Battle begins. Earth awakens at Jackson's order. Rodriguez activated Phase 2. Dozens of smaller craft launched from human ships, not fighters as the galaxy understood them. These vessels moved in ways that shouldn't have been possible. No detectable energy signatures, no exhaust trails, just pure motion through space, bending it subtly as they flew. In the observation decks, scientists stared. They're bending space around their hulls. That's not stealth. That's localized space-time manipulation. These are supposed to be humans, Captain OK4. That's the Athena contingent. Let's just say they represent our commitment to adaptability. Unknown to the wider galaxy, the Athena pilots weren't ordinary humans. They were neural integrated operatives, symbiotic pairs of human consciousness and adaptive artificial intelligence systems, capable of reflexes and processing speeds beyond anything a baseline soldier could manage. And they weren't here to lose. The Drax fleet opened fire first. Dozens of brilliant energy beams streaked across space, precision strikes aimed to cripple and destroy. They hit nothing. The human ships weren't where they appeared to be. Athena craft moved through gaps in the Drax formation that logic said shouldn't exist. They struck not at shields, but at energy regulators, power junctions, and command relay nodes. Within minutes, the Drax formation, so perfect moments ago, was in chaos. Revealing strength with mercy, the Federation watchers were stunned. What was supposed to be a rout had turned into something else. A slow, methodical dismantling of a superior force. But Earth wasn't out for blood. Despite having the upper hand, the human ships didn't annihilate their enemies. They disabled them. Shut down weapons, disrupted drives, jammed sensors. In less than an hour, a third of the Drax fleet was floating helplessly, unable to move, fire, or retreat. War Commander Kick howled in disbelief. They mock us with mercy. Admiral Jackson didn't respond. He didn't need to. This wasn't about cruelty. This wasn't about domination. It was a warning. A final, polite one. Directive 17. When politeness ends, truth emerges. For centuries, the galaxy assumed it understood humanity. Newcomers, Death World survivors, primitive, adaptable, stubborn, dangerous, perhaps, but mostly unpredictable in their emotional volatility. Even after joining the Galactic Federation, Earth had consistently presented itself as humble, cooperative, and restrained. Their ships, while functional, were basic. Their technology, competent but uninspiring. What no one realized until now was that humanity had been holding back. They weren't underdeveloped, they were disguised. The moment Directive 17 was activated, that illusion shattered. Admiral Rowan Jackson, standing at the center of the HCS Tenacity, gave the quiet command. No dramatic announcements, no dramatic speeches. Just 3 calm words, carried on a neural interface. Begin Phase 3. Awakening the hidden fleet across Earth's 12-ship battle fleet. Subtle changes began to unfold. To the untrained eye, they were cosmetic at first: panels shifting, ports unlocking, sections realigning. But to any military observer worth their rank, what was happening was nothing short of impossible. The hulls of the human ships split open in seamless movements, revealing hidden structures. What had once looked like sensor dishes now extended into massive weapons arrays. Curved hull segments rotated to form resonance chambers. Fins disguised as heat dispersers retracted to expose high-intensity shielding projectors. The configuration of every ship changed entirely. They weren't transforming randomly. They were shedding their disguise. The outdated destroyers were now sleek, angular instruments of war. Equipped with energy platforms the Federation had only theorized in laboratories. The cruisers, once believed to be limited in scope, reconfigured into mobile weapons platforms, laced with modular systems, redundant shielding, and gravitic field generators. Most shocking of all, ships that had registered as auxiliary or medical support vessels revealed long-range quantum targeting arrays and fleet-wide suppression systems. None of these had ever been disclosed, not to Federation allies, not to any interstellar observers. Earth had played the part of a developing world so well that even the most advanced species were fooled. The Athena contingent unleashed, if the transformation of the ships had shaken Federation observers. What came next shattered their assumptions entirely. Rodriguez turned to Jackson. "Athena units ready for deployment, Admiral." Jackson didn't hesitate. "Deploy." From every human vessel, small black-winged crafts launched in precision, hundreds of them. They didn't appear on standard threat detection scans. No propulsion trails, no heat signatures, no energy spikes. They seemed to slide through space itself, bending the fabric around them as they moved. In the observation deck, one Arcturian scientist dropped her tablet. "That's impossible. Those ships, they're not just cloaked. They're not emitting anything." Another leaned forward, eyes wide. "They're using localized space-time folds for propulsion. That level of manipulation isn't supposed to be feasible for another 600 years. Captain Maya Okafor, calmly standing among the Federation delegates, offered a slight smile. "We've had it for quite some time. We just didn't think it was polite to show off." The Athena contingent wasn't just stealthy. They moved with precision that defied explanation, dodging before being targeted, weaving through gaps that hadn't opened yet. Their maneuvers weren't random. They were strategic, calculated, impossibly fast. And they weren't piloted the way most ships were. "These aren't regular human pilots," the Medusan envoy muttered, his species' bioluminescent field glowing with disbelief. "Those response times are beyond neural capacity." "You're right," Okafor said simply. "They aren't just pilots, they're integrations." She let the silence linger before continuing. "Symbiotic A's. Human consciousness directly interfaced with predictive combat systems. No delay, no hesitation. They see the battle as it unfolds, before it unfolds." The Drax begin to falter as the Athena contingent swept through the battlefield. Drax formations began to collapse. What had started as a textbook alpha wedge formation tight, shield layered, and staggered now looked like a fragmented patchwork of flailing ships. Every time they attempted to regroup, Earth's units would predict and counter the move before it started. Like chess grandmasters playing 3 boards ahead, the humans tore through their opponents not with brute force, but with elegance. One Drax tactical officer screamed over the comms, his voice warbled by stress hormones. "We can't track them. They're everywhere." "They're not following any combat logic." War Commander Kik snarled in disbelief, slamming a clawed fist onto his console. "Fire blind volleys. Engage proximity defenses. Keep them at bay." But it didn't work. Missiles went wide. Energy cannons swept across empty space. And every time the Drax thought they had boxed in a squadron, the humans would fold out of existence, reappearing on the other side of the formation to strike from the flanks. They weren't just winning the battle, they were dominating it. A galactic revelation back on the observation deck. Federation diplomats stood in stunned silence. Many had placed bets, made bold predictions about Earth's inevitable defeat. But now they watched those beliefs crumble like ancient ruins under bombardment. "This wasn't incompetence," muttered the Tan security chief. "This was strategy. They wanted to be underestimated." Captain Okafor's expression turned solemn. "You misunderstand. It's not that we wanted to fool anyone. We hoped we'd never need to reveal this at all." "Why not?" an Arcturian asked, almost breathless. "Why hide so much power?" Okafor turned toward the viewing window, where blue bursts of light flashed as the Athena units surgically disabled Drax reactors, carefully avoiding fatal hits. "Because power invites fear," she said quietly, "and fear leads to preemptive war." Another delegate spoke up, slower this time. "Then what is Directive 17? Okafor's eyes didn't leave the battlefield. "Directive 17 is the moment we stop being polite. Phase 4. The Hermes Protocol aboard the Ache's Tenacity." Commander Rodriguez's console lit up with pulsing red. "Admiral," she said sharply, "we're detecting unauthorized energy patterns from the Drax command vessel. Signatures consistent with prohibited space-time rupture weapons." Jackson's face hardened. "The Sundering Protocol?" Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Confirmed." Kik, cornered and humiliated, had decided to cheat. The Sundering Protocol was a last resort system, designed to tear localized sections of space into quantum shreds. It wasn't just outlawed, it was suicidal. If activated, it wouldn't just destroy the battlefield, it could destabilize the entire sector. Jackson gave the final command without emotion. "Implement Hermes Protocol." Full field suppression. Across the human fleet, a silent cascade began. Streams of invisible, modulated quantum particles surged across space in layered concentric fields. As they intersected with Drax ships, the results were immediate. Weapons powered down, drives shut off. Energy shields blinked out. It wasn't an imp, it was something far worse. The laws of physics themselves were being rewritten. Force fields collapsed under manipulated gravitic harmonics. Particle accelerators desynced at the quantum level. Reactors went dark, not damaged, just bypassed. On board the Drax command vessel, lights flickered as Kik watched his screens fail one by one. His crew scrambled, but it was pointless. "This is impossible," Kik growled, his body trembling from stress. "Their fields are neutralizing force interactions across entire sectors. This violates reality." From the Federation decks, even hardened scientists stood paralyzed. "They're not fighting with superior weapons," one whispered. "They're weaponizing physics itself." The final silence within 40 minutes of Hermes Protocol deployment. The entire Drex fleet had been rendered inoperable. Not one destroyed, not one fatality. Just silence. Ships disabled. Engines lifeless. Weapons cold. And it was then that the Federation finally understood. This wasn't just a military tactic. It was a message. Humanity didn't just want to win. They wanted the galaxy to see. They wanted everyone to remember. Post-battle reflections. Admiral Jackson stood silently at the center of the Tenacity's bridge, watching as automated retrieval drones began towing disabled Drax vessels toward recovery coordinates. Commander Rodriguez turned to him. Hermes protocol complete. All targets neutralized without destruction. Jackson nodded once. Status of Athena units. All accounted for. No casualties. Minimal system degradation. Good. It had gone exactly as planned. Behind him, communications pinged. A request had come through from the Drax flagship. War Commander Kick wished to speak, not with the Admiral, but with Ambassador Chen. Jackson allowed himself the faintest smile. Let her know he's ready. Mercy as a weapon. The power of restraint. It should have been over in minutes. The Federation had expected annihilation either of the humans or by them. Given the nature of the Drax, most assumed that if humanity somehow found an edge, they would take it to its bloodiest conclusion. But the battlefield at Proxima Centauri Neutral Zone told a different story. There were no smoldering wrecks, no debris fields or drifting corpses. The Drax fleet, though silent and powerless, remained intact. Systems frozen, weapons disabled, shields collapsed, but no ships destroyed. Earth had sent a clear message, not through conquest, not through devastation, through control, through restraint. The galaxy watches in silence inside the Federation observation vessel Narathal Prime. Dozens of envoys, commanders, scientists and reporters watched as the last Drex warship fell into full systems lockout. Its core disengaged without even a single missile launched by Earth. Captain Maya Okafor stood at the front of the chamber. Her presence was calm, professional. But to those watching closely, there was something else, a quiet gravity to her demeanor. She knew the implications of what they'd just witnessed. Not a single fatality? Asked the Arcturian delegate, his voice breaking the silence. Okafor confirmed with a nod. Our objective was to disarm, not to destroy. But they challenged your existence, the Tan military advisor insisted. You had every justification to wipe them from space, correct? She said. Then why didn't you? Okafor walked slowly to the front of the viewing glass. Her eyes fixed on the floating Drax fleet now under tractor tow by Federation drone vessels. Because that would have made us like them. She turned to face them all. And we're not here to prove we're predators. We're here to show what happens when someone mistakes kindness for weakness. A quiet conversation of titans on board the Tenacity. Admiral Jackson reviewed the transmission request from the Drex command ship. It wasn't a surrender. Not yet. But it was something close. Sir, Commander Rodriguez said, looking up from her neural relay. War Commander Kick has requested a formal dialogue with Ambassador Chen. In accordance with the Federation's challenge conclusion protocol, Jackson nodded slowly. He's finally accepted the truth. Let the ambassador know he's ready. The transition from war to diplomacy was seamless, another carefully orchestrated component of Directive 17. Within hours, a secure diplomatic chamber had been established on the neutral deck of a Federation arbitration station. Guards from both factions stood. Ode had dulled. His wing membranes drawn back. Though uninjured, he looked diminished. For a moment, he said nothing, then he raised his gaze. You deceived the galaxy, he said, his voice rough, slowed by exhaustion and humiliation. You pretended to be weak. Chen took her seat across from him. We never claimed weakness. You hid your strength. No, she corrected gently. We allowed others to see only what we needed them to see, Kik hissed softly. Why? She tilted her head. Because history taught us that when we show too much strength, others respond with fear. And fear turns to violence. We didn't want war, Commander. We still don't. He flexed his talons against the table. You could have destroyed us. Yes, why didn't you? Chen leaned forward. Her voice softened, not with pity, but with something older, something more dangerous. Because power isn't proven through destruction. It's proven by what you choose not to destroy. The resolution of a war without fire. Chen placed her palm against the table's resolution scanner. A display lit up between them, outlining the formal terms of conclusion under Federation law. The Human Confederation claims full sovereignty over the Orion colonies, she said. As per the terms of the challenge, all Drax territorial claims are voided. Kik read the conditions, and for the first time in hours, he looked genuinely confused. This is all you want? He asked. You could claim war reparations, demilitarized zones, territory, subjugation. Chen shook her head. We have no interest in ruling others, only in securing what is ours and in ensuring we're not challenged again for simply surviving. Kik paused. You really don't want conquest? We come from a world that's tried conquest many times, Chen replied. We learned its cost. We'd rather build than break. He studied her closely. Then, with a slow exhale, he pressed his talon to the resolution terminal. The Drax Empire acknowledges Earth's victory and accepts the resolution terms. The room fell silent again. A moment later, Kik looked up one last time. Tell me, what is Directive 17? Chen, for the first time in the entire conflict, smiled. Directive 17 is very simple. It's when we stop being polite. A civilization reconsidered across the Federation. Ripples of the battle spread like gravitational waves. Military academies rewrote their assumptions about human technological capacity. Political alliances were questioned, and treaties were redrafted. Think tanks that had previously ignored Earth suddenly made the species their top priority. In science councils across 17 systems, debates erupted over the possibility that Earth had, for decades, been operating at a technological tier far beyond what had been reported. Analysts searched through old records, picking apart every known engagement, every piece of data that might hint at the truth they'd all missed. Back on Earth, the reaction was subdued. There were no parades, no fanfare, just quiet acknowledgement. The strategy had worked. The message had been received. A final debrief on the observation deck of the Tenacity. Admiral Jackson joined Captain Okafor, both standing silently as Drax ships were towed to repair bays. She delivered the terms? He asked. Okafor nodded. Kik signed the resolution himself. He'll make sure they don't challenge us again. They may even respect us, she added. Jackson gave a quiet chuckle. Funny how that works. 3 cycles ago, we were the curious little upstarts. Now they see us. He turned toward her. Do you think they understand the message? Okafor thought for a long moment, then nodded. The wise ones will. And the rest, she looked out the window again. They'll think we're monsters, or worse, liars. But they're missing the point. Jackson raised an eyebrow. And what's the point? That mercy is the most terrifying power of all, because it proves we chose not to use the full extent of what we're capable of. She pointed to the Drex ships. They'll never forget that we let them live. The aftermath. Politeness restored days later. Ambassador Chen stood before the Federation Council. Her demeanor was as composed as always. Earth reaffirms its desire for peaceful integration within the Galactic Federation, she said. Directive 17 has been rescinded. We are, once again, operating under protocols of cultural and diplomatic exchange. There were questions, accusations, challenges. Chen answered all of them the same way, with honesty, with clarity, with the understanding that the fear in the room came not from what Earth had done, but from what Earth hadn't done. As the meeting concluded, the Arcturian representative approached her. You could have rewritten the political order of the galaxy in a single day. Chen nodded. We still might, but not through force. Then how? She gave a slight smile. Through memory. A whisper among the stars in the weeks that followed. An old Earth saying made its way through back channels, diplomatic circles, and hushed conversations in war rooms across the galaxy. Be careful who you call weak. They may be stronger than you can imagine and kinder than you deserve. For most species, the Drax defeat became a cautionary tale. But for a few, the bold, the curious, the reckless, it sparked something else. An uncomfortable realization. That in a universe ruled by dominance and intimidation, the most dangerous species might not be the one that strikes first. Waits until all other options are exhausted. Waits until kindness no longer works. And then only then shows what it's truly capable of. When the dust settled, the galaxy rethinks humanity. The battle had ended without explosions. No shattered hulls. No fiery wreckage spinning into the void. No blaring cries of victory from Earth's forces. What lingered, instead, was silence. A heavy, unfamiliar silence, and it echoed across the stars. Across 17 sectors and hundreds of worlds, the conclusion of the formal challenge between the Human Confederation and the Drax Empire was transmitted and replayed in every known language. From desert world observatories to floating metropolises orbiting twin suns, from remote colonies of aquatic thinkers to hive mind networks pulsing beneath gas giants, the outcome sent tremors through every echelon of galactic society. It wasn't just that Earth had won. It was how they had won. And more importantly, what they hadn't done with their victory. Mercy at scale in every strategic analysis, military simulator, and predictive AI model. The conclusion had been clear. If Earth had the technology to disable the Drax, they surely had the power to destroy them outright. The idea that a newly ascended species would hold back after being publicly insulted, militarily challenged, and nearly annihilated, it made no sense. Mercy on the battlefield wasn't just rare. It was practically unheard of. Even the most civilized galactic powers, when pushed to formal challenge, had used the opportunity to assert dominance, punish, and conquer, because strength, in the eyes of the galaxy, was about what you could take. But humanity had shown something far more dangerous. They had shown what they were willing to leave behind, and that terrified everyone. Federation panic and politics. The Galactic Federation headquarters, an ancient, asteroid-carved complex orbiting at the quasar, found itself in total administrative chaos. Emergency sessions were called. Classification protocols were re-examined. Security clearances were elevated. The Technology Oversight Committee launched a full-scale investigation into Earth's systems. Scientists pored over the battle footage, struggling to reverse engineer what they'd witnessed. Space-time manipulation, quantum targeting, gravitational suppression fields, neural symbiote combat units, None of it made sense. The Medusan delegation released an official statement condemning Earth for deliberate obfuscation of technological development. The Arcturian Council requested a reclassification of human advancement to Tier 1, putting Earth on par with the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Meanwhile, the Tan scientists went quiet, retreating to their vaults to revise entire astrophysical models. It wasn't just Earth that had to be re-evaluated. It was reality itself. Cultural shockwaves, but the panic wasn't confined to boardrooms and war councils. Across the outer colonies, art collectives began exploring what it meant to coexist with a species capable of winning without killing. Philosophers debated whether restraint was a new form of warfare. In religious circles, some prophets declared that humanity's actions were a sign of divine evolution, a species capable of wielding God-like power without falling to God-like pride. Others, however, weren't so optimistic. On a cold ocean world orbiting a red dwarf, the Sevelaran Communion, a deeply honor-bound society, viewed Earth's behavior not as restraint, but manipulation. Mercy is simply another weapon, one elder said during a public address. It creates a debt, a reminder that your enemy let you live. Across the galaxy, debates raged. Was mercy the ultimate kindness, or the ultimate power play? The Drax. From apex to reflection for the Drax, the humiliation was absolute. Their entire cultural mythos, one built around conquest, superiority, and the unbroken strengths of the warrior caste, had been shattered not with fire, but with silence. Their fleet hadn't been defeated in glorious combat. It had been turned off, systematically disassembled like a machine left in sleep mode. War Commander Kik, once the most feared tactician in the Empire, now faced disgrace from his peers. And yet, in the quieter corners of Drax society, something unusual began to grow. Introspection. Young officers questioned what kind of honor was preserved by being spared. Veterans began to reflect on past victories and what had been gained or lost through destruction. One respected Drax historian published an essay simply titled, "What if Mercy Was the Greater Strength?" It went viral within hours. New strategies, shadows, and warnings. While many species debated philosophy, others reacted in a more predictable way. They began to prepare. Military projects accelerated. AI enhancement programs were fast-tracked. Espionage networks scrambled to infiltrate Earth's diplomatic offices, only to discover layers upon layers of misdirection. Earth wasn't just technologically advanced. They were prepared to not be understood. And for the first time in centuries, the oldest powers of the galaxy realized something chilling. They weren't sure how much of humanity they had actually seen. Directive 17 had lifted the veil, but only slightly. And that made Earth the most unpredictable power in the stars. The Federation Council's emergency hearing 2 weeks after the battle. An emergency Federation hearing was held. Representatives from every species gathered in the high rotunda, an acoustically perfect chamber designed to eliminate deception through tone analysis. It was a sacred space for negotiation, truth, and collective decision-making. Ambassador Lin Chen stood before the crowd again, just as she had before the battle. But this time, the room was silent, not from scorn, but from curiosity. The Human Confederation, she began, reaffirms its commitment to peaceful cooperation, scientific exchange, and diplomatic engagement. One delegate interrupted. "You call this peaceful? You disabled an entire fleet." Chen didn't raise her voice. "And not one life was taken. You manipulated us, hid your strength. We concealed nothing," she replied. "We merely chose not to reveal more than necessary. You assumed that made us weak. We chose to let you assume that, a Medusan delegate whispered. Then everything we know about Earth has been a lie. Chen looked him in the eyes. No, everything you know was true, just incomplete. There was a long pause. Then the Tan Prime Archivist spoke. Why show your strength now? Chen's expression softened. Because the challenge left us no other option. We did not want a confrontation. But we cannot allow others to mistake our patience for inability. A warning etched in history after the hearing, as the delegates filed out into the glittering starlight outside the rotunda. A phrase began to echo in private messages and confidential briefings. Politeness is a choice, one we make, not one we're forced to follow. It became a whisper, a slogan, a warning. Military academies taught the Proxima Centauri encounter not as a battle, but as a case study in deterrence strategy. Diplomatic schools rewrote their handbooks, including new chapters on calculated humility and strategic invisibility. And everywhere from backwater planets to high-orbit stations, people started looking at humans differently. Not as conquerors, not as threats, but as something else. Something older. Something that knew how to survive in a dangerous universe, and had chosen deliberately to walk softly until it no longer could. Humanity's choice back on Earth, life continued. There were no mass celebrations, no galas, no fireworks, only internal reports and quiet acknowledgments. In a classified briefing room beneath the Atlantic Defense Station, Admiral Jackson debriefed the Prime Strategy Council. We've entered a new phase, he said. They see us now. A voice from the table asked, will they come for us? Some might, Jackson answered, but most will reconsider. Because we scared them. No, he said. Because we didn't. That response carried more weight than any threat. Humanity hadn't needed to flex. They had just needed to reveal that they could. A legacy in motion, Ambassador Chen returned to her office, overlooking Earth's orbital council platform. Outside her window, Earth shimmered below a blue world floating in the darkness. Still underestimated by many, now feared by more. She sat quietly for a moment, listening to the background hum of news channels cycling through the latest Federation analyses. Then her assistant entered with a datapad. It's spreading, she said softly. Chen looked up. What is the phrase? It's showing up in political briefings, in news headlines, even in entertainment shows. She showed Chen the datapad. At the top of the screen was a bold title. This is what happens when humans stop being polite. Chen smiled faintly. She didn't need to read it. She already knew, back to politeness. But everything has changed. The Proxima Centauri incident was barely a month old, but the galaxy had changed. Not in the way it had when ancient wars redrew maps or when new species were discovered. This time, change didn't come with explosions or invasions. It arrived with silence, with ships disabled, not destroyed, with words chosen, not screamed, and with power shown, then withheld. Humanity had stepped forward, not as conquerors, not as diplomats pretending to be more than they were, but as a civilization that had waited long enough and chose, in one pivotal moment, to stop being polite. And now, ironically, Earth was ready to return to diplomacy. But this time, the galaxy would listen differently. New protocols. Same smile. Ambassador Lin Chen was back in the Federation Grand Assembly chamber, the same space where she had once calmly smiled through a hailstorm of Drax condescension and insults. But today, there were no jeers, no laughter, no low murmurs of skepticism rippling through the delegations. Today, the room was still. Respectfully still. The seats were filled by representatives of 63 species. Many had once rolled their eyes when Earth spoke. Now they leaned forward slightly, listening. Chen stood at the same podium, wearing the same tailored navy blue suit, the same neat bun in her hair, the same composed tone. But the woman they saw today was not the same ambassador they had underestimated a month ago. And neither was her species, the address members of the Federation. She began, voice steady, clear. The Human Confederation wishes to reaffirm our dedication to peace, cultural exchange, and mutual development. We offer continued cooperation in research, planetary exploration, and medical aid programs. Some murmurs returned, but they were ones of surprise, not mockery. One delegate whispered, "They're still offering help." Another, "After what they could have done, that's unexpected." Chen continued, as if she hadn't noticed. "Our intention has never been conquest. Not in our history, and not in our future. Our goal is coexistence. But let me be clear. Coexistence requires mutual understanding." She paused, and then said the line that would be quoted in thousands of headlines for weeks to come. "We are polite because we choose to be, but it is a choice, not a limitation." The room didn't erupt in applause. It didn't need to. The point had landed. Private talks, quiet tremors later that day, in a series of closed-door meetings. Federation sub-councils met with Earth's diplomatic and military liaisons. These weren't confrontations, as they had been before the battle. These were careful, even deferential conversations. "How much of your fleet was revealed at Proxima?" the TAN strategist asked, trying to sound casual. Admiral Jackson, seated beside Captain Okafor, offered a polite nod, only enough to resolve the challenge. "You mean there's more?" asked a Medusan negotiator. Jackson didn't blink. Directive 17 was tailored for a controlled demonstration, not for full mobilization. The Medusan's luminous pupils dimmed in instinctual distress. "So we still don't know your limits." Jackson gave the faintest smile. "Correct." And just like that, every species at that table redefined how they saw Earth, not as weak, not even as strong, but as unmeasurable. The shift in galactic culture in the weeks that followed. Galactic culture began to shift in subtle but permanent ways. Federation media now handled stories involving Earth with caution. Anchors who had once joked about human emotional instability now chose their words carefully, remembering that those emotions had been part of what allowed humanity to survive a death world and develop impossible technologies. Military academies around the galaxy included new coursework, the strategic use of restraint, lessons from the human Proxima engagement. Simulation rooms were updated to include Earth's tactics as unpredictable variables. Cadets struggled to replicate human maneuvers. None succeeded. Trade relations with Earth exploded. Worlds that had once rejected Earth's trade pacts now rushed to form agreements. Many weren't just interested in economic exchange. They wanted to be allies, or at the very least, not enemies. Philosophy circles, particularly in the Federation's outer systems, reinterpreted classic ethical texts. A surge of discourse debated them. The idea that power not used is power at its most terrifying. The Drax acknowledged humanity in their own way of all the changes that followed. Perhaps the most surprising came from the Drax themselves. Publicly, the Drax Empire issued no apology. They didn't bow, didn't express regret, but within their own systems, they did something far more honest. They adapted. They rewrote tactical doctrines. They revised their species classification of Earth from volatile expansionists to potential galactic stabilizers. And in their elite military schools, a new curriculum was introduced. the Chen-Jackson Protocols. These protocols taught the next generation of Drax warriors a lesson they had never considered before. Mercy can be sharper than any blade. Ambassador Chen's final interview on the one-month anniversary of the Proxima Challenge. Ambassador Chen agreed to a rare public interview broadcast live across galactic networks. The interviewer, a crystalline being from the Press Collective Nexus thoughtline, asked the question that everyone had been thinking. Do humans enjoy being feared now? Chen took her time before answering. No, she said softly. Fear has never been our goal. It isn't sustainable. You can't build trust from fear. You can only build walls. Then why show your strength at all? Chen's voice stayed gentle, but it carried something deeper steel beneath silk. Because too many species were mistaking our kindness for helplessness. And when you do that, you force a choice. We didn't want to be feared, but we couldn't afford to be dismissed. The interview ended with the interviewer's final words. And now? Now, Chen replied, we go back to being polite. But hopefully, this time, they'll understand what that really means. Real-world reflection. A lesson beyond the stars, the story of humanity's restraint. Their moment of quiet power and their return to diplomacy echoes far beyond the stars of Proxima Centauri. In our real world, we often mistake kindness for weakness. We underestimate those who speak softly, who take the high road, who avoid confrontation. We scoff at people who de-escalate, who compromise, who back down not out of fear but out of wisdom. But sometimes, as with humanity in this story, the ones who hold back are the ones you should fear the most, not because they're aggressive, but because they're capable, and choose not to act on that capability unless absolutely necessary. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it wears a quiet suit and stands calmly at a podium. Sometimes it disables weapons instead of launching them. Sometimes it wins without raising a hand. The real lesson is this: politeness is not a weakness, it's a conscious act of strength. And when that choice is revoked, what's revealed can change the world. Or in this case, the galaxy.